Okay, part 4 on the Mustang Resurrection build today. Finally got that carburetor all tied up. So today's the big day we've all been waiting for. We're gonna put it on, get it plumbed, and try to start this car. It's a very exciting day. A few things I still need to do: change the oil and filter in that thing, get it ready, check some of the wiring situation, make sure that the coil has enough voltage, things like that. I'm not going to mess with the fuel pump or even the cooling system at all right now. I just want to see if it's going to run. We'll get to those things when we get to them. Right? Big day. Let's go. Okay, I got the oil changed. A couple of things here. Number one, cautionary tale. I got excited. I did not put a funnel in there when I was filling it with oil, and of course it glugged and I spilled so much oil all over this freshly washed engine. So now I got oil everywhere, and I spilled so much of it that it ran down the back. It ran down the front, it dripped over the side, ran all over the exhaust. You can see it all over the damn exhaust. So now it's gonna smoke like a son of a bitch when I do get it started. And because I lost so much oil down the side of the engine, I actually am short of oil and I gotta go back to the store to get more oil. So don't be like me. Don't get in a hurry. Take your time, take the steps, use a damn funnel. The other thing is I need to wire up this choke. Okay, it's just a hot and a ground, easy peasy. So a lot of people, because it's so close to the coil, the common practice is to wire the 12 volt switched off the coil straight to the thermostat, choke thermostat. Don't do that. If you do that, what you're doing is you're robbing your coil of voltage. And yeah, it might still run, but you are robbing precious voltage and amperage from your coil, which it needs. The best thing to do is to run it off a 12 volt switched source that has nothing to do with your ignition system. Most of these alternators have a stator bolt on them, and the stator, what that does is it provides voltage only when the alternator is running. So I'm going to just make the assumption that this alternator is fine, and I'm going to pull the 12 volt off the stator on the alternator, which is kind of hidden. It is a black, it's a bolt with a black, you can't see it, but it's in there. It's a bolt with a little black washer underneath it, and it's stamped STA, that's your stator. That is 12 volts while the alternator is spinning. So that's the best way to pull your 12 volts off. 12 volt off of that is basically 12 volt switched. Run it up and then ground it to anywhere convenient. So that's all I got to do is get that choke wired up. I got to get to the store now to go get another quart of oil, and then we're going to touch the key on this thing and see if it goes vroom. Exciting. Alright, time for a little pro tip. This is the power cord off of an old coffee maker. Anytime I throw out an old appliance, this was just a cheap coffee maker, I keep the power cord off it. I just cut it off, throw it in a drawer for exactly this kind of thing. So this was a 3-wire setup because it was for a household appliance, so it had a neutral white wire. I just cut it off there. You don't even need it, it's all good. So what this will allow me to do is I'm going to use it for the wiring of my choke. So I need a ground and a power wire that runs from the choke down along the block to the alternator where the stator wire and a ground are. So this will allow me to have a really clean installation because we got this black wrapping, 2 wires in one. I can run it down along, it'll be very, very clean. Now the magic of using something like this is that this is not just a clean black coating on a couple of wires, it is a heat shield. All appliances are required to have a heat shield wrapping. So this one, it's stamped right on it. It's good for 150 degrees Celsius, which is about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. More than enough for this application. Unless it's like touching the exhaust manifold, this will be plenty good enough. So it's 2 birds and 1 stone. You got your wires in there, super clean installation, and it's heat shielded. Okay, oil's changed, choke is hooked up, super clean installation, runs down to the alternator. I have clipped the fuel line down here. I don't know what's in those lines yet, so I certainly don't want that sucking up into the carburetor, so I just cut it off. So we won't be sucking any fuel. All I'm going to do is just dump some fuel down the primaries there, and we'll just see if it fires. I'm not going to run it for a long time if it goes, just want to make sure that it's going to actually run. So now's the big moment. I'm going to dump some gas down there, and we'll see what happens. Okay. It's gonna go, it's gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and hook the throttle cable up temporarily, just because I'm one man. I can't do it all from in here, so I can at least control the throttle from in there. I'm going to double check my firing order, because that seems like it's struggling a little bit. Let me double check my firing order. I'll be right back. Okay, so because I'm out here by myself, I don't have anybody to keep feeding fuel into the carburetor. So before I go messing with the firing order, which I think it's okay, I just rigged up this tube and poured a little bit of gas down in there and blew it up into the float bowl. So now the float bowl is pretty much full of gas, so it should run for a few minutes if it's gonna run. So let's go try that. Uh-oh, something happened. Okay, Let me double check firing order now. So it did an awful lot of popping and sputtering, but never really got going. I double checked the firing order. It is correct. Actually, I quadruple checked the firing order. Again, it is correct. But this time I pulled my #1 spark plug out and put it at top dead center to make sure my rotor was pointing at #1. And that's all good as well. So I know that's correct. I know my coil has voltage. So I figured, well, maybe it's a carburetor thing. I mean, I just rebuilt it. So I pulled the top of the carburetor off. Let me get that gasket. And to see what kind of situation we had in there. And there was barely any fuel at all in the float bowls. So I topped those up. Maybe that fuel pressure in the float bowls has something to do with it getting going. So I'm going to try it like that, just leave the lid off of it and try it again. I topped the battery up overnight, fresh fuel in the bowls. Let's give it a shot. That was fun, huh? Right. And that's why you don't run the carburetor with the top off. I'm not sure what's going on here, unless maybe the timing is way off, but I haven't messed with that at all, and I was told that it was running and driving when it was parked. So I guess at this stage, you're gonna have to dig a little deeper. The distributor cap looks brand new. Zero corrosion, zero anything. I mean, it looks brand new. So I can't imagine it's distributor cap related. I don't think it's ever been run, this thing. Spotless. The rotor, exactly the same. Looks brand new. No corrosion, no nothing. I will go ahead and clean up the contact points on it just to see. The points look brand new. They're all shiny and everything. I can't imagine it's the points. I will go ahead and pull the condenser out. We'll check that. And I think I will check the grounds. There's a ground right there. It's got a little bit of rust around it, so I'll go ahead and pull that and clean the ground. The ground for the points is this guy here. It goes to the coil, and it's got a pretty shitty connection over here. Don't know if you'll be able to see it. Here, it's got a little bit of a frayed end. I mean, it's there, so it should be okay, but I'll repair that as well. I might go ahead and just pull the coil too and bench test it and make sure that it's within range. Seems spark related to me. I don't think it's a fuel issue because I've already gone through that carb. I checked the advance. The advance is free, working as it should, the vacuum advance. So that's not interfering. Let me do those things. Let me clean up the ground, and I will go ahead and file and reset the points. I never messed with any of this stuff before because it all looks brand new stuff. So I just assumed it probably was alright. But let me go ahead and get a little deeper. I'm going to pull the condenser and bench test it. Probably pull the coil, bench test that. I'll clean up the points, clean up the grounds, and we'll see if that makes any difference. So a couple of findings here in messing around with this distributor. Took the points out, cleaned them really good, and re-gapped them. They were set perfectly, and they were already clean, but I went ahead and did it anyways. I remade this ground strap here, the one I had on there, as I was taking it off to check it and clean. Busted loose. It was barely hanging on. It was connected, but it was barely connected. So maybe we had a ground issue. I don't know. So I remade this grounding strap out of a good heavy gauge wire with some shielding. And I cleaned this connection here and that connection there. Cleaned both screws on the wire wheel, so I got good ground from the points to the housing. So then I'm looking at this ground here. It's totally fine on that end, and the wire's in good condition until you get to, wait for it. So clearly there's been some issues with this in the past. It's all taped up. I have no idea what's in there, and also pretty tore back. So I will make a new ground lead which goes from the points to the coil. So it kind of sounded like grounding issues. Let's hope it's that. Let me make this guy first. Okay, I redid all the grounds as I showed you in the distributor, from the body to the points and from the points to the coil itself. There was a couple of bad grounds in there, so I'm hoping it was as simple as that. But just in case, I retimed it from scratch, took the plug out, found top dead center, and redid the distributor based on top dead center, and then retimed the points with a test light, and we're at 12 degrees, so it should go. I mean, if it still doesn't want to start, it can't be a timing issue, or it can't be an ignition issue. It'll be something else. So let's give it a shot. Okay, I just took the top off the carburetor and filled the fuel bowls back up and splashed a little down the primary side there. I also got me one of these bad boys. So now we can do it all from right here, which makes life a lot easier. Okay, let me make sure the ignition in the car is turned on and hope for the best. Ignition is on. Okay, here we go. Well, that's not good. That is a really bad knock. Really bad knock. Shit. Well, them's the breaks sometimes. You buy a car that doesn't run, that's what you get. You get to try to solve the puzzle and hope that the puzzle is complete. I was told that it was a good running car and that it wouldn't have any issues. Well, what do you know? It's got some issues. So that noise was bad enough. I got a general idea of where it was coming from. Looked like it was coming from around the number 4 cylinder, which is the right side back, all the way back towards the firewall. I'm hoping that maybe it's a stuck valve and that there was a piston knocking against the valve. That wouldn't be catastrophic. I didn't run it for long enough that it would be terribly catastrophic. So that's the hope. I think that's what I'll do next, is pull the valve covers and see if there's any obvious sign of a stuck valve. That'll be it for this episode though, because I need to do some thinking. If it's worth monkeying around with this engine, or get a known good engine from another source and drop it in. So I'm going to think about that for a couple of days. I probably will pull the valve covers just to have a look-see from my own neurosis. But that's it for now. Catch me on the next one. Thanks.